Alright, in this video we're going to be talking about polynomials, and more specifically the product of polynomials. So this just means that we're going to learn how to multiply polynomials. So there are a few different methods for how to multiply polynomials. So the first is by using a table. Then there is the horizontal method. And then there's also a vertical method. And then along with these three methods, there are also special products that we'll also talk about at the end. And those include difference of squares, and then the square of a binomial. And we'll talk more specifically about these later. But let's go ahead and jump right in to products of two polynomials. And let's first talk about the method of using a table. So, for example, if we had the two polynomials, let's say we've got x squared minus 6x plus 1, and we want to multiply that against the polynomial x plus 1, we can go ahead and make a table to multiply these together. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a table that has enough spaces for each piece of this polynomial. So as you can see in this first polynomial, we've got 1, 2, 3 different pieces to it. So we're going to need 3 columns. Wow, if I can make these even. All right, so we're just going to place each of those pieces above this column. So we've got x squared, negative 6x, and a positive 1. And then our next one has 2 pieces to it. So we need 2 rows, just like that. And then we're going to place each piece in its appropriate place, so x and 1. Now, for this box, you're just going to multiply the 2 factors together that make up that box, right? So for this first one, we're going to have x squared times x. Then we're going to have negative 6x times x. And 1 times x. Then we're going to have x squared times 1, negative 6x times 1, and 1 times 1. All right, so then you just take those answers. So x squared times x is going to be x cubed. Negative 6x times x is negative 6x squared. X times 1 is x. X squared times 1 is x squared, negative 6x times 1 is negative 6x, and 1 times 1 is 1. Then you just take the sum of all of these values that you came up with in your table. So we're going to sum the boxes. That's going to equal x cubed minus 6x squared plus x squared minus 6x plus 1. And then you just simplify that. So we're going to go ahead and look at x cubed first. It looks like that's our only x cubed factor. So we're going to do x cubed. For x squared, we've got a negative 6x squared and an x squared. So here and here. So combine those, we're going to have negative 5x squared. And I like to cross these out as I go so I make sure that I don't forget anything. So then we're going to move on to x. So we've got x and negative 6x. So you combine those, we're going to have negative 5x. And then plus 1 at the end. So that there is going to be our solution. So it's going to be x cubed minus 5x squared minus 5x plus 1. And that's our answer. So let's go ahead now and talk about the horizontal method. All right, and let's just use the same example so we see that we get the same answer every time. So we've got x squared minus 6x plus 1 and x plus 1. All right, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and use a couple different colors so we can see this. You're going to have, you're just going to split this one up into different parts and multiply these 3 different parts by this each time. So we're going to have x squared minus 6x plus 1, and then we're going to come in and put in the second part. So it's going to be times x plus 1 times x plus 1 times x plus 1. All right, so once you have that, then you can go ahead and distribute and then simplify. All right, so we're going to have x squared times x plus x squared times 1 minus 6x times x minus 6x times 1 plus 1 times x plus 1 times 1. And again, you just simplify that. So x cubed plus x squared minus 6x squared minus 6x plus x plus 1. So we only have this as x cubed. Go ahead and go cross that out. For x squared, we've got minus 6x squared plus x squared, so minus 5x squared. Minus 6x plus x is minus 5x plus 1. So we've got all of our factors. So again, that's going to be your solution. And as you can see, those match up and are the same. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about the vertical method for multiplying. So this one you're going to set up just as you would any regular multiplication problem. So again, we're going to use these same numbers so we can compare our answers to show that you're going to get the same answer no matter what method you use. So x squared minus 6x plus 1 times x plus 1. All right, so we're going to go ahead and set these up. So we've got x squared minus 6x plus 1 times by x plus 1. All right, so that's how you're going to set it up. Now, what you're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to change the color on it so you can see it. All right, so you're going to take each of these black factors from up here and multiply it by this green one down here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to have 1 times 1, which is 1, and then negative 6x times 1, which is negative 6x. And then we're going to have x squared times 1, which is x squared. All right, and then once you've done that, we'll go ahead and make this green as well because we timed it by the green number. And we'll make this one blue. All right. So now you're going to take each of these numbers from up here and multiply it by the blue value. Come on, go blue. All right. So we're going to have 1 times x, which is a positive x. And then we're going to have negative 6x times x, which is negative 6x squared. And then x squared times x, which is a positive x cubed. And then you can just go ahead and add these together. So we're going to have 1 minus 5x minus 5x squared and x cubed, and that's your answer right there. And as you can see, you can compare that to up here, and it's the same as both of these. So it doesn't matter which method you use, you're going to get the same answer. So whichever one makes the most sense to you and you feel like is the best way, go ahead and use that way. Totally up to you and what you're most comfortable with. So let's go ahead now and talk a little bit about special products. So the first one that we're going to talk about is squaring a binomial. So what that means is you're going to have some binomial and it's going to be squared. And when that happens, that's going to be equal to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. All right, so where your first value is a, your second one is b. So you just square this first one, add it to 2 times the product of these two, and then add it to your second one squared. All right. So if we did an example of that, let's just say we've got x plus 3 squared. We're going to go ahead and square our first one, so x squared, plus 2 times the product of these two, so 3 times x, plus your second one squared, so 3 squared. So that's going to be x squared plus 6x plus 9. So that would be your product of that. Now, you can also remember that x plus 3 squared equals x plus 3 times x plus 3, and then just FOIL like we've done in the past, and you'll get this same answer. But every time that you FOIL a squared of a binomial, you're going to end up with this. So this is just kind of a shortcut way on how to perform that. All right, so now let's talk about the difference of squares. All right, and what this means is that you're going to have a binomial multiplied by another binomial, and they're going to have the same first values and the same second values, but they're going to have opposite signs. So one's going to be plus and one's going to be minus. All right, and when that happens, all you're going to have to be left with is a squared minus b squared. So that's why we call it the difference of squares, because you just square the first one, square the second value, and put a minus sign between the two. So it's the difference of those two squares. All right, so if we had an example, let's say we've got x plus 2 and x minus 2. All right, again, that's going to be equal to square root of the first, which is x squared, square root of the second, so 2 squared, and put a minus sign between them. So you're going to be left with x squared minus 4 for that. Again, you can use the FOIL method on this, and you're going to get the same answer. It'll just take you a few extra steps. So this is just kind of a shortcut way. If you recognize that it's a difference of squares, you can go ahead and just skip right to this. Now, both these methods also work if your first term is something more complicated then just x. So let's say we've got 3x plus 6 and then 3x minus 6. Again, these first terms match up, these second terms match up, and their signs are opposite. So match and opposite. All right? That's your clue that these are difference of squares. So again, you can take that first value, square it, your second value, square it, put a minus sign between them. So 9x squared minus 36. And that's going to be your difference of squares. So again, in this video, we went over how to find the product of polynomials, which is just multiplying two polynomials together. We used the table method, the horizontal method, and the vertical method. And then we talked a little bit about these special products. We talked about the difference of squares, and we also talked about squaring a binomial.